for things. I don't have to go into that too much, but it was, I know one of the things that was hard for me at times was to be able to play some of the sports when I was being raised on the farm, and especially time of the year, there was always things to do on the farm. And I kind of against wishes sometimes, although Mom encouraged Dad to let me participate in some of those things. I ended up, and thanks to the people from the Slayton Chamber of Commerce, they volunteered to bring us home after some of the athletic practices. That was great, otherwise I'm not sure. Track, I suppose I could have ran home or cross country. But anyway, it was, thanks again for the Chamber of Commerce people. But the other thing I remember from growing up was Dad telling me about his brothers and all the jackrabbit hunting they did and how much fun that was. And I don't know how many hundreds and maybe thousands of miles I walked out there trying to chase the jackrabbit up out of the plowland. And every once in a while I did, and about that 15th shot, it was really fun to watch him finally roll. It was nice to have a semi-automatic. Tried the shotgun once in a while, but you had to be pretty quick with those. Your one shot was the last thing you'd have. I guess another thing that I remember, we never had TV at home growing up. And I think of sometimes nowadays, although our kids have been pretty good about it, but I think society nowadays and kids, they're so used to being entertained, and if they don't have entertainment, they're bored to death. Well, we didn't have a lot of entertainment, but on the farm, I think, helped as well, that we had plenty of things to do that we didn't really like to do, but we also got pretty creative in just finding things to keep occupied. And another thing that I remember about Dad was just his laugh. He's always had that deep laugh where it sounds like all the air is coming out. A couple things that I think even more meaningful was, as a kid, I can probably count on both hands the number of times that we did not go to church. It was Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday nights, and there was quite a few times on Wednesday night where I said, why do I have to go there? I need to study, I need to do this, but they were always faithful in going to the house of the Lord. It was the few times we couldn't, there was so much snow on the ground or whatever that it would have been dangerous to try to go. So I think their faithfulness in that, and as I think about that, I think, as all of us kids, what's neat about that is we all serve the Lord. And our kids as well. That's really neat. I remember being embarrassed sometimes to invite some of my buddies home, because on the next morning after they'd spend the night overnight, we'd end up and we had family devotions, and we'd read the Bible or daily bread or something like that, and afterwards, turn around in our chair and say our prayers before we went to school. That was the most embarrassing for me as a teenager to have some of my friends come over and do that. I remember another time, probably when I was a little younger, and I heard about this, I don't remember this, but Mom went to town and I wanted to go with in the worst way, and somehow I couldn't go. And I don't know if it was the determination that I got from my father, or maybe it was a little further than that, it was a stubbornness. And I decided I was going to go anyway. So I started walking down the road to town. I think somebody came to pick me up sooner or later. One other time, I think this is, as far as life molding, life changing. I remember one other time, there was that night, and I got a good whipping for something. I don't remember what it was. But I decided, I went to bed and I was so angry, I decided I was gonna run. I was gonna take off. And I just started to get out of my bed, and there was no one in the room, and this big hand in my back, just pushed me right back down. And there was no one in the room. So I just knew that it was some divine. Because I was just scared me to death. Obviously, I didn't go. Another time, we were always brought up to, honor, respect God. And I think there was also a healthy fear of the Lord as well. And I just remember one instance where I had this big boil. It was about the size of a quarter on my knee. I probably was 11, 12 years old or so. And we went to church that Sunday, and they asked if someone would, anyone needed to be prayed for healing. And boy, that thing hurt so bad, I said, I have nothing to lose in this deal. While the pastor prayed for me, I had this burning sensation in my knee. And all I had to do, as it was, no sooner I got to my bench, or the pew, and sat down, it was completely gone. There was just a scar there.
Amen.
Instances like that where you know that there's a God. You know that, He's real. You have impacted me the rest of my life. Another thing that I remember, I'll try to keep this short, two more things. One was, on occasion I could sit, we have either cattle buyers or decal for what we used to sell. Trojans. But some of the competitors would come and try to sell a seed corn. And one thing that I always remembered, I don't remember a time where sometimes I get to go sit in the car with my dad and whoever the salesman would be. And it wasn't the time that I can remember. We said, we usually found a way before we got up out of the car. I said, I need to ask you one question. That question is, if you were to die tonight, do you know where you would spend eternity? And I remember a lot of the answers came back. I said, well, I really hope so. I've done a lot of good things and that. And Dad would say, well, do you know that you can know? You can know beyond a shadow of doubt. And I remember he had these tracts, and probably has one today, but it was God's Simple Plan of Salvation. He said, I'll tell you what, he said, if you read this and you do what it says, I guarantee that you'll know that you can go to heaven. And over and over again, that was something that nothing else, the seed was sown there. But that was a big impact on me to be able to observe that, especially as a young teenager or whatever. One last little story is being the oldest was always hard because my curfew was early, especially on Saturday night. It was supposed to be 10:30, especially when we had church for Sunday morning. I had to get home, and there's probably other reasons for being home at 10:30. They probably knew what I'd get into if I were out later than that. And there's a couple times. One time I came home past curfew. I forget how late it was, but I kind of snuck in the house, opening the door real carefully, not to make any noise. But as soon as I opened the door, what I heard is my mom praying in the living room on the big chair there. And I think the faithful prayers of my parents, as kids as well as our children, and our whole family, it really made a difference. We used to have a little plaque up there. Prayer changes things, and I really believe that. So, anyway, Joanne can tell you another part of that curfew if she gets a chance later on.
She had to remind Danny to get home because his folks would. Okay. Joanne's going to tell us.
No, it's appropriate to just insert it right here because I need to set the record straight with my. Oh, you can't hear me? Am I allowed to?
Speak right into the mic.
Okay. I need to set the record straight with my in-laws because I don't know if they ever know the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey always said. As Dan mentioned, he had a curfew of 10:30 on Saturday nights, and most of you probably know Dan and I started dating in high school, and when I was 16 and he was 17, and I knew that his parents wanted him home at 10:30 on a Saturday night. I also knew that I knew they really didn't want him to go out at all on Saturday nights, but they compromised and said, if you're home at 10:30. And of course, Saturday night's date night, so, that was pretty tough for Dan to obey that, and so he never let me know about that, but I found out, and I didn't want his parents to not like me and to think that I was the, culprit there, the naughty girl keeping their son out. But Dan didn't seem to care about that rule, not nearly as much as I did. So I came up with an idea. I just pretended like I had to be home at 10 o'clock. And I didn't, but I pretended like I did. And so Dan took me home at 10. And I thought that'd give him plenty of time to get home at 10:30. And the next morning I was in church, this very church, and my girlfriend said, "Joanne, where were you last night?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "How come you weren't with Dan?" And I said, "I was." And they said, "No, we saw him over at the bowling alley and you weren't with him." I said, "Oh, and what time was that?" "Oh, about 11:30. So Mom and Dad, I want you to know that wasn't my fault.
They didn't have to worry about me. I didn't date in high school. I have some tremendous memories too, I guess. Mom showed me how to wash dishes, and I still enjoy washing dishes. It's a great conversation time, especially when Janine actually enjoys wiping them with me or something like that. But one of the things that Mom taught me as a young boy with the family altar in the morning is somehow my chair was somewhere close to hers. And when we turned around in our chairs to pray before we left for school, before Dad always came in from chores, we ate breakfast together, and that was a tremendous privilege, a privilege that few kids have today. Where Dad came in after chores, made sure that we were able to eat together, and then we had devotions, and then we turned around in our chairs to pray. And I remembered, I don't want my mom to hear what I'm praying about, and so I was praying silently, and then Mom said this to us, and I use it even in counseling a gal that said I have a hard time praying out loud, even in front of my family. And Mom said, "You know what? She would say, 'Why don't you pray out loud, David? I just encourage you, because if the Sunday school teacher or the youth leader or someone ever asks you to pray in public, you're not going to know what it even feels like to pray out loud. So pray out loud when you're at home, and it's a comfortable zone.'" And I learned